Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the Western Heights Church Podcast. My name is Terrance Cottle, and I'm the youth and family minister here at our church. And I'm joined in order, starting with my left on the screen, with Mitch Wiggins, our preaching minister, preacher, pulpit minister, and in the middle, for those watching the stream, Rusty Sherry, who is our associate minister, life support minister, education minister, former youth minister,
jack of all trades, master
3/4 time minister, elder. That's it. I think that all the titles I know of.
His business card is a banner, just to fit it all.
Or just leave it blank. One of the two.
I was told I wasn't supposed to say anything during the introduction, so that's why I haven't spoken.
That's not true. That's a lie. That's not true at all. Terrible way to start.
Yeah. And welcome to the podcast.
Okay, there you go.
Man, so we had a really fun weekend with we as the church, the baby blessing, but also our family, multiple birthday parties, very busy. How was y'all's weekend? How was your Sunday, but how was y'all's whole weekend since we've kind of reconvened?
Oh boy, my weekend was fairly tiring, taxing, and just I was weary because we were in the process of selling an RV and buying a new one. So
for a trip that begins in a
this
week,
coming Sunday. So yeah, like
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, I still don't know what's going on.
Man. Yeah, I remember Michaela saying something about that Sunday. She's like, "Yeah, we got an RV, and it's so exciting," and da-da-da-da. And I was like, "Man, I hate getting a new major purchase.
Yes,
it's so stressful."
Yes, buyer's regret and all those things that come with it. You're like, did we do the right thing?
Right. And not to mention, yeah. And when she told me again, I was like, "Aren't you going somewhere in the RV in like 6 days, 7 days?"
Yes.
She said, "Yeah, I think so."
Yes.
Might have to fix that so I'm not cutting out so much here. But how about you, Rusty? How was your weekend?
Well, it was kind of slow. Addison, our previous intern, came to our house on Saturday night. So she got in from Kansas and we went out to eat and played a new game that she had bought. So
yeah, that was neat. It was kind of a surprise. It was a surprise in the sense that she told us about a week out and I forgot about it until 3 days out. But
and you came over to our house on Friday night, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we had dinner with one of the other families.
You and the Myers, yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. And in fact, Jaina scolded me because I forgot to tell them about the baby blessing, even though I saw them Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Forgot to remind them.
Yeah. In spite of my personal failures on that front, I think that part of Sunday went really well.
Agreed.
No, I think it went well too. Yeah.
I'm glad that that is part of the rhythm of Western Heights. Is that I don't know, it's irregular with a rhythm, but every couple of years now we do a baby blessing, and that's pretty cool.
And I think Jack did a great job with Luke.
I had forgotten about that until you said that.
During that song that he led. Yes.
Did you
I appreciate the fact Luke wanted to be up there with him and that Jack was very patient.
And that Luke wanted that microphone.
He did want that microphone, just like his daddy.
Yes, just like his daddy.
Well, we at one of the smaller churches the rural church we were at before here, they had a little thing on Sunday nights with the kids, and so he has gotten up a couple times to try and sing Jesus Loves Me, but that was the limit of our rotation was Jesus Loves Me.
Right.
And I had also forgotten until you said that, Rusty, that he bailed on the last verse of our "This Little Light of Mine." He said,
"No, did he?" I didn't even notice that he went down.
We were all laughing over there.
Made it all the way back. Looked at us. Looked at Jack. It was like, "Oh, we're still doing this." And so he looks at us like, "Can I go back up there?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he goes, "Okay." And he takes off and goes back up there. It's like, well, okay.
So funny.
I mean,
so
props, funny. Oh man, I'd forgotten about the Jack and Luke part of that. Yeah, Jack invited him and said, "Hey, he told Priscilla and I, hey, I'm doing this like in a couple weeks, and do you think it'd be okay if I asked Luke to come up there with me?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." And so we tell Luke. And so last week when Mitchell went up there, Luke was trying to fight over us to go up there. I'm like, no, it's not next week. Next week. Sorry. Our mistake. I forget. There's no sense of time at that age.
Hilarious.
But yeah, man, the baby blessing thing was cool. I want to go back and look at the stream just to get the full picture of all the families a little bit because I was kind of in the chaos of it with mine. But it
Mhm.
was neat seeing all the kids, all the little young kids and the young families up there. I think we've got to be close. Rusty, you mentioned it's irregular, but we've got to be close to being able to do that every year. And Jane and I have floated that.
Mhm.
Should we stick with every couple years? Um,
No, I think every year is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I mean, I just kind of framed it as we do a graduation senior Sunday every year, even if there's only two
Mhm.
or three of them. And
Right.
why not? Why not
Yeah, we
get
had
both?
how many were up there on Sunday? Was it
At
7?
least 5, maybe 7,
5?
I'm
I
thinking.
Yeah.
think it was 7 families, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what Jane and I
Okay.
counted as well.
So just for a point of clarity, if someone wasn't there Sunday or doesn't know what a
Yeah,
baby blessing
yeah.
is, Terrence, give us a quick like rundown of what in the world we did,
Yeah.
what that
Yeah,
is.
so I did take a couple minutes off the top of the service after the welcome that I sort of did, and the church graciously asked me to do again.
Make up for your previously bad one.
Yes.
Just
No, keep
kidding.
trying, keep trying. After the initial welcome, I kind of explained it as just a mirroring what we see in Scripture in the Old Testament and the New, where people are called or dedicated for a purpose. Specifically, when it comes to kids, my mind always goes to Deuteronomy 6:4. But it's bringing them forward, challenging the parents to raise the kids up really in the church, in the Lord, dedicating them to God, and then also challenging the church. And I appreciated that our elders were able to participate in this as much as they were, because that
Hmm.
is to me almost a requirement in all this. It makes all the sense in the world to challenge the church to say, "Hey, do you as the church recognize your responsibility in these kids' lives?" When I got the chance to preach, I remember this very well, but my last lesson was on It Takes a Village, and that's I guess, if I'm allowed to say this, my own voice has been ringing in my head since then, but really just the studying and preparing for it has been in my head since then, of it takes all of the adults to really bring kids up in the faith, and so it's
Mhm.
not something many of us grew up with, probably, but when I so both my mom and my grandma actually, texted me after Sunday, and they said, "You were dedicated as a baby," and that floored me, but my parents got married at the Farmers Branch Church of Christ when it was still that, and, uh, even then, I guess they were Eddie Ketchersid was an early adopter of the baby blessing, I guess, but
Mhm.
she said, "Yeah, you were dedicated as a baby," and I thought that was kinda neat. I didn't know that,
Mhm.
but yeah,
So
that's the 2-second explanation of it.
yeah, and one of the cool things is it's not just dedication. I remember in years past when we did it, we needed to explain exactly what's going on in this, and so what I like about it is just the verbal commitments that we ask the
Yes.
parents to make of to the best of their ability, training their kids in the life of Christ. But then, to me, it's very impactful that it comes back to the congregation of saying,
Yes.
"We are going to support you. We are going to be here. We are going to be this broader family together." And I really like those moments.
Yeah, I agreed. That's
Mhm.
what I love about it is and that's why as we were planning it and scripting it, the commitments were originally part of my slash the youth minister, like the speaker part. And I was like, I mean, who am I to ask the congregation to do anything? Like that doesn't make any sense. We that's
Mhm.
what we should call on the elders for. They're gonna do
Yeah.
kind of the prayer and the blessing part. Let's have them do that. So it was neat, Rusty and Don being involved and all the elders being up there who were in town. So it was really cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll segue. And actually, but wait, there's more. Before getting to the sermon, we had a question come in, a couple weeks to a month ago now, and we had not just had a chance to work it in, and it was about Bible translations. So I wanted to throw this to you guys. What translation do you use? Do you prefer? Is there one you avoid? They asked, part of the question was also, what's the difference? We can touch on that a little bit. But Mitch, tell us why you love the NLT so darn much.
Well, I was going to start off with, well, everyone uses the King James, right? I mean, it's the authorized
Oh boy.
version.
Oh
Um,
boy.
well, okay, first off, an overview, like every translation has the human element, meaning I hope that they're inspired by God still, that they're working toward godly purposes, but you're asking a group of humans to use their scholarship, use their wisdom to discern whether it's original text or they're discerning even later versions and basing upon, if King James to New King James. That was still a committee of people that was working on, okay, where can we help update and where do we need to remain true?
Yeah.
And so every translation has its positives and its negatives. And so that's one thing to keep in mind for sure. So you asked specifically about my love affair with the New Living Translation, the NLT, and really in my study and plenty of other things, it's not my go-to translation, but in my preaching, it is.
Oh,
And,
interesting. Okay.
and the main reason on that is if you ever want to know kind of the background or the reason on why a translation is translated the way it is, they literally tell you at the beginning of the translation.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. There's a
Yeah, at
whole
the beginning of
background.
my New Living Translation that I've had for a long time, it tells you like, okay, there's word for word translations, there's phrase by phrase translations. Word for word is going to be a little bit closer to the Greek or Hebrew or Aramaic, but sometimes cumbersome whenever you're reading it. Phrase by
Yes.
phrase might be easier to read, but it's harder for word study. And so,
Yes.
depending on what you're using it for. But one of the things that it says in the New Living Translation, one section after talking about like the translating team and just a little bit about how translations work, its very first thing says, written to be read aloud. And so their purpose is they were intentionally choosing language that would be spoken and easily spoken in conversation. So it's not simply about making it a certain reading level. It was about a certain auditory level. And that's the reason that I used the NLT preaching, is because it literally was made for preachers and Bible teachers and parents and whoever else to read scripture aloud. And what I found out is a lot of times whenever I would give a little commentary, I'd use the NIV or something else in preaching and then try to explain what that meant.
Yeah.
I realized that if I were just translating it, I would say this, and it more often than not was what the NLT would say. So
Yeah.
I will vary from that, but that's my go-to in preaching because it's made for that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I always, I don't know, I'm not a high level linguist, but in the right room, I might be. I enjoy studying languages and why the certain things are rendered certain ways, and I love getting into that. So I love hearing what the draw of different translations are. Rusty, are you an old King Jamesian?
No, I am not. And in fact, I do remember when I was a little kid that's what we used, and I couldn't stand it. So
Yeah, I think anybody that
I
knows
just
you,
I didn't
you're
know
like
what I
that was
was
true.
talking about. It just didn't make any sense to me. And so at one point, I guess I came into touch with the NIV, and it's one I've kind of stuck with all these years. But but I also use ESV, NASV, New American Standard. That was what was used a lot in college. Um, and so those three main translations are what I've used: ESV, NIV, and New American Standard.
New American
I kind of like the word for word, the ones that are more word for word. So basically, what
So
that's
ESV
saying,
being one of those that is
that would
touted
be
for
one of
that.
those, yes. So
Mhm.
that's more one of the more recent ones.
Mhm.
And so I like making my own NLT version. So that's what I do with my explanations, I guess, in a sense. Um, but yeah, that's just kind of where I am. I also NIV is what I a lot of times will read from as well. But I've got a NIV Bible that I've got a lot of notes in, and so I kind of like looking back at the notes sometimes to see if I still think the same thing or still have the same questions and
Right.
Yeah.
whatnot. So
Yeah, I do want to say this because I get this question a lot. I'm sure you guys have as well. And I feel like I need to clarify that if you're buying like one of the mainstream 4 or 5, if you're going to Mardell's, if you're going to, I can't think of the other Christian bookstore, but if you're buying an off the shelf, recognized, well known translation, you're not going to get a bad one. Like there's,
No.
and y'all can contest that if you so choose. But people ask me all the time, is this one better than that one? And they hear all these polemics and arguments that this one's bad or this one's better. If you're sticking with the mainstream, NIV, ESV, even I say I'll include the NLT in that, King James, New King James, NASB, CSB, the Holman Christian. If you're sticking with like the internationally known, none of them are really bad in the sense of it's not like there's any that have glaring issues. They may have slight bias when it comes to talking about things like the church or salvation.
Yeah, certain topics.
And I know you're saying, well, Terrance, isn't that like a really big deal? Yes, yes, yes. But the differences I'm talking about are so minute that the amount of study you have to do to even pick up on them is really huge to me. And they're going to be offset by just studying broadly and not hanging your hat on one text anyway, right?
And even with that, like if you want to dive into it, then always take more than one translation.
Yes.
So part of my practice is I read through the Bible every year, and every year I choose typically a different reading plan. But so far every year I choose a different translation to read. And so I'm on my 15th translation. So I have definitely crossed the mainstream into some of the weeds of them, but I enjoy hearing each voice and being able to compare it to either what I know, my heart language, which is which is New King James version. Like I memorized most of scripture in New King James, and so that's still my heart. But my preaching is the NLT, but then I like comparing them all.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Any preacher or teacher worth their salt will tell you that if you're going to bring up a verse for study, especially if you start doing like a really textual driven study, pick more than one, pick a bunch of them. I'll throw this in the notes or maybe even a screenshot of what I'm talking about in the video somehow. But I use Bible Hub a lot because it is very easy to pull it up and it will list a verse in like the 20 different most popular translations. And it's very easy to get a sense of like, okay, if you don't know Hebrew and you don't know Greek, it's very easy to just read that, scan that, and get a sense of like, what does this mean? And I'm sure that a lot of our audience is favorable to the New King James as you are, Mitch. And so I won't, I don't know, I won't dog on it too much. Something I will, and I mean, like you said, it sticks with you. I think there's been a ton of studies, and they say repeatedly that it's still the most made to sort of be memorized, to stick in your heart. That's the cadence and the pattern of it. It just does something in our brain. But the one thing I will caution people against is if you go to Old King James, and I know there are people who stand by Old King James, and this might get us a ton of letters from these people that I'll get in 3 weeks.
I love that you went with letters.
Yeah, because the people upset are not going to send me an email or a text.
They're not going to send an email.
I'm going to get
well done. I caught it. Well done.
hand walked letters by a courier.
Oh man,
there are a few things where the King James, when it comes to the current English being spoken, is wrong. And what I mean by that is like the word, take for example, mansion. The phraseology of mansions in heaven comes from the Old King James, when that word did not necessarily mean a luxury house in the way the modern word means.
Right.
So the literal meaning of this word over 400 years has changed. No way, right? Anyone who's been alive long enough to see words change in their lifetime gets that. So there's a couple things where like the language has shifted so much that that word is actually wrong. And so that's all. That's all I'll say about the Old King James. The New King James addressed most of those. But at the end of the day, the old kind of teacher joke or phrase is that the best Bible translation is the one you're actually going to read, right? So
that's right.
At the end of the day, as long as you can pick up on it, that's good enough. We'll hop right into it here, talking about Sunday kneeling in holiness. So we usually kind of always start with this. If there's something you wanted to say or didn't say, or just how did Sunday feel?
So I know that when you asked that question last week, a couple weeks ago, I was like, it just felt flat. Well, this is one of those that I walked away and I was like, that felt like a solid hit. like, and not saying home run or anything to that effect,
Yeah.
but it was one of those that I told my wife as soon as I wrote it, because I'm in the habit of usually writing the sermon 1 to 2 weeks ahead of time. And so whenever I wrote it, I told her, I was like, I am so excited to preach this one. I just was kind of juiced
Nice.
up about it. I was amped
Yeah.
about it. And whenever I stepped down, I was like, yeah, like those pre-feelings match the post feelings, and that doesn't always happen. So it
Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
great.
Felt good coming off the bat.
Yeah.
That's what I always tell people about when they would ask about preaching every week is, statistically, not every not every at bat is a home run, but yeah, there's some that just feel good. Well, so Rusty and I talked before the show, and just like last week, you felt down about it. We were like, "Man, that was great." This week, we said, "No, actually, I know you feel really great, but we're here to bring you back down to earth.
Yeah,
That was
it's a
terrible.
terrible sermon.
A lot of
Yeah.
issues.
No,
We're here to
I
kind of
just want
redline
you to
it
know,
today."
man, I'm glad I brought a glove with me to worship because I caught it.
You got
I caught it. So I had a glove, caught it. It's great.
Let's
It
keep with this
sounded good coming
baseball
off the
metaphor.
bat.
Kinda
We'll
good
let
coming
the
off the bat.
audience
I was
decide
able to
whether
get
it
the
was a home
ball.
run or
I
a warning
snagged it.
track fly ball.
Yeah.
Snag it and stretch this metaphor as long
Threw
as
it
we
over to
can.
Terrance. He was all right.
Round the horn,
Yeah.
all those things. No, that's good. I mean, I just, as I don't know, I guess I'll say this, even though I don't currently preach, as preachers or at least ministers, it's good to feel that, there is a good feeling to putting in all that work and feeling like, man, I feel like I communicated the points well,
Yeah.
whether or not the audience agrees with those points, whether or not those resonated with people on this particular time and place and all that. But to just have that feeling of like, I feel like I communicated it well. I feel like I said what I wanted to say. I felt prepared, yada, yada, yada. That's good. That's a good feeling. I like
Yeah,
that.
none of it is meant for arrogance. Like, oh, I did so good. It's more so I walked away going, and I let, to the best of my ability, let the Spirit lead me in prep, and I didn't feel like I got in the way of what He can do with this. Because sometimes I feel like I get in His way. So I feel like
Fair.
He could do a lot with this one. So
I only pulled a couple clips. In fact, one of them is still being annoying at exporting. I don't have a video for this one. I want to play it, and we'll just react to it.
Epstein list. Epstein list.
Do we have any
Epstein
context
list.
for this?
Nope. It's just Mitch saying Epstein list.
Epstein list.
oh dear. I did have a few people like, he mentioned that?
So, in particular, probably I'm going to guess the younger section of our audience in general picked up on that more than the older, but you never know. I mean, sometimes retired folks get other better to watch the news too.
Yeah.
But our section, I guess, really not even for like the actual news, but just the cultural meme of it at this point. The high schoolers definitely noticed it. And everyone's head snapped up.
Oh,
He's like,
yes,
"What?
it did.
What did he say?
I was laughing.
What did he just say?" And I immediately leaned over Priscilla and I said, by the end of tomorrow, am going to have just a clip of Mitch saying the word Epstein list that I'm going to have on my phone to play whenever I want for the rest of the time.
All right.
And for those listening, I did not warn him that I was going to do that.
Nope.
So
Nope.
I wanted to
He
capture that.
he didn't warn me either. So
No.
yeah, none of us.
So,
will.
so before writing your letter and handing it off to the mailman, don't blame Rusty or Mitch. That was all me. I'll take the call for that one. No, that was actually sort of a functioned as somewhat of a time kill because my actual clip was giving me technical issues here.
No one else can bow down to any other god or human except for the king himself. 30 days. And if you don't comply, you get thrown into the lion's den. This wasn't about prayer. This was about allegiance. Everyone knew that. And Daniel understood something in this moment that teaches us a lot. Kneeling is never neutral. Kneeling is never neutral. Everyone kneels to something and it means something.
So I like that, the idea that it was never neutral. You started with kind of another cultural touchstone for those who are old enough to remember. That does feel like a lifetime ago in some ways. But you said kneeling is never neutral, and that how Daniel prayed was this symbol, a statement, if you will, of his allegiance. And I guess I wanted to throw this around the horn to you guys, because you asked this rhetorically at some point in that section there. But what do we submit to? What do we bend the knee to borrow some Lord of the Rings, R. Martin, J.R. Tolkien language? What do we bend the knee to? What do we submit to? What are our idols? Because when we think of idols in the biblical sense of the word, they're the large golden statues like Nebuchadnezzar has, or they're the pagan temples of the Greeks that are very ornate, and they're about these heroes and legends of their mythology and Caesar. What do y'all think are our culture's idols? And just as humans, what do we often, even by accident, find ourselves submitting to?
Well, do you want me to go, Mitch?
You go for it.
Okay. I think there are a lot of different things, actually. Money is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty clear. I would imagine that everybody would probably agree with that pretty easily.
Yeah.
We are willing sometimes to adjust our behavior if money is involved and
Oh, boy.
more available to us. We may adjust our attitude if in our demeanor with people in order to get benefit from it. So if you want to complain to get your way, then you can be a Karen or whatever you want to call it. Right.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big ones. Another one is sex is another one that becomes an idol. You can see that in just in media and our own notoriety, I guess, or our esteem in a sense. We want to really look good to others, and see we may compromise as a result of trying to look good. I think kind of our nation can even be an idol.
Oh, boy.
No, I mean, really, isn't it?
Now
I mean,
we're going to get some text or emails.
We probably will. But that's true. And I think that's not just true for us. It's true for lots of different countries.
Yeah.
We can be asked to do things that we might not otherwise do because that's what we're caught up in, either a political party or by following a particular person or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so the truth is that, or at least what Scripture tells us, what Paul tells us, is that we need to fix our eyes on Jesus. He is the one that we need to follow, that our citizenship is in heaven.
Yeah.
And therefore, anything that contradicts that goes against that, we need to be very aware of. But we can fall into the trap of making a lot of different things our idols.
Well, and that's one of the things to add it in there is that there's a difference between something good and recognizing something good and then making it our idol that we kneel to.
Right. Yeah.
And so I mentioned in the sermon, like, what if to flip this, one of the positives of kneeling, like one of the positive examples or pictures is when you propose to your wife, or what soon be wife. When you propose, you get on a knee and it symbolizes something. It shows something. But here's the deal. If I am if she is an idol to me, in other words, I worship the ground that she walks on. That has its own connotation, I guess, with different things. But like, if I follow her more than I follow Jesus, I have made her an idol. And so money fits within that. Our nation, I think you can still respect and honor and have a good understanding of that, and even pledge allegiance to the nation that we live in. But there's something different whenever we go into what might be called nationalism, of heading towards this bending the knee in a sense of not with God. And we may be using it in the context of, well, this is for God, but it's actually taking first place. And that's where a lot of the problems arise because, heading back to other ideas, sports can be
man.
something that we bend the knee toward, that they,
Yes.
whatever we're watching, or if it's our particular team, that it doesn't matter what else is going on. It's not even about church attendance. It can be, but church
Yeah.
attendance at this point, it might even just simply be, are we ignoring our family so that we can watch our sport?
Yeah.
And that happens a lot, and it's showing what we are bending the knee toward.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, when you're talking about the nationalism or the Christian nationalism is what is referred to, that when our patriotism is what determines how our faith functions, that is backwards. But when our faith determines how we function as a patriot or as someone who is trying to pledge allegiance to the flag or whatever, when our faith, our relationship with Jesus and what he has told us is what informs how we do that, then that's what God calls us to do. He doesn't call us to be unpatriotic. It's
Right.
no, I don't think he's saying that.
Yeah.
But if they come at odds, then you can only serve one master.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
I like how you said that,
So,
Rusty.
yeah.
That'll be the clip on my phone, Terrance.
Okay.
Something positive.
You go ahead. I'm going to stay lighthearted and ridiculous. No, I appreciate that each of you guys drew out something that we don't see in Scripture. And let me clarify what I mean by that. In Scripture, a lot of the idols and pagan gods, in that sense of the word, are clear and obvious. But a lot of the ones we wrestle with today are even more entrenched and entangled with desires that ultimately could be good, that are even supposed to be good. And just like, man, Mitch, I think one of your lessons a while back talked about how we've created to worship. We're created to worship. We have in us a desire to worship something. And now I'm sitting here thinking about it. I really wish I had pulled it up for this lesson because I think it was what do we kneel towards? I think was the lesson a while back, and it just talked about how we're made to worship. And so in the Old Testament, they place in front of them other gods. It's why as soon as Moses goes up the mountain, another god is placed before them before he gets back. In the same way, I would say a lot of our modern cults, idols, things like that, really prey on what are ultimately perfectly healthy desires, whether that's for community, for someone's wife, for a family, to work hard, to provide for that family, to have a level of security. All of those are healthy desires that we could even say are godly in a sense.
Yeah.
But when they start taking the first place, as you said, or when they start putting us in opposition to our faith, we need to be aware of that and kind of recognize that. And yeah, I think we're at a really odd place culturally where almost everything is so extreme and so heightened that Rusty, you hinted at this. I don't think you put it quite this way, but that our self has even become an idol, right? That the idol of self, that everything I want is inherently good. However, I think something should be is inherently right just because I think it. So self has become an idol, but there's a lot of stuff culturally. I don't know. I'm debating in my head how often the woods we want to get on this one, but patriotism is the tip of the iceberg. I think there's a lot of performative worship and idolization of certain jobs, careers, vocations, services, um, just any groups, right? Really, you could expand that to be even more general. There's a lot of subgroups that could put up as like, we need to call these people heroes and we need to elevate them above everybody else. That is almost always very performative and does very little to actually improve those people's lives, whether this is like an oppressed group or it's firefighters and policemen. Every few years, it seems like the plight of teachers comes up, right? Everyone is like, teachers need to be honored, teachers need to be rewarded more, teachers need to make this much more. And it's like, okay, so your tax dollars are going to go up by 2% next year, right? No. I just think, like, everybody should love teachers more. I don't want to do anything to help their
Yeah.
state.
Yeah,
No, don't misunderstand me. Teachers are good, and somebody somewhere should pay them more, but don't
somebody
raise
needs to do it. Mhm.
Um, so it's weird. We're culturally and on social media and on just the TV media, there's all this push for these groups to be recognized or put up in front of others, but there's no real thrust to it. There's no real power to it. So it's a very odd place where everything is worth worshiping and nothing is worth being sacrificed for. It's very odd.
Mhm.
Um, and I
It's
guess we just
interesting, so I've thought this before, that basically in our country, and it's pretty much in any country that has the right to vote for leaders, what we vote for is what we want, right?
we're doing it right, I would think, yeah.
And that makes sense,
Mhm.
right? That makes sense. But as Christians, what God calls us to do is to look out for the interest of others. What if, what would happen if the way that we voted was we were voting looking out for the interest of others? I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, it's a
I
totally different way of thinking about it. What would happen if that's what we did as a nation?
I think what's
How
tricky
would we
there
vote?
is there's unfortunately, realistically, in our country, unlike, I don't know, every other first world country, you only have 2 choices. There's not
True.
an
And no,
array
you're right
of
about that.
options.
That's true. Yeah.
Um, but the problem with that is I think you could make the argument that both sides would tell you they are doing what
Yeah,
they
just that.
think is best for
Oh
others.
no, they definitely would be. Yeah, that's
And
they would
that's
be
how they
telling us that.
right,
Yes.
I think that's how they've
Yeah.
kinda co-opted the sense of justice.
Sure.
Now, I will say, that the best kinda litmus it's hard to do that in a national election,
Yes.
to understand. The better litmus
Yeah,
test is a local election,
Right.
is
that's a
that
great point. That's a
if you
Mhm.
take it to a local election and I just like this guy. I want him, I'm gonna go vote for him, but, I don't really think he's gonna do much. Like, that seems like kind of faulty reasoning, but if I'm gonna vote for this guy, we may not see eye to eye, but I really believe he's gonna do the best and the most for this community.
Yeah.
Then that kinda hits upon what you're talking about,
Mhm.
Rusty, and I think
Right.
I don't know how we can, uh, put that into the, I know it's a
Oh,
trickle
I don't
effect.
know. Yeah, I
Everyone
don't know if
says
there's
that
a
the
way.
local
It's
elections
just a thought that I had.
is really
I
the
think
most
it comes out. I think it comes out more when it comes to taxes. So,
yeah,
like,
you're right.
there's
Yep.
a bond.
Yep.
There's a bond election, right? Because you've got schools that want to be built or whatever, and you have to determine. Well, I don't have any kids in school anymore. Why do I want that? I don't want
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And so you can look at it two different ways. You can say, well, you know what? In our community and for our kids, that's what they need. And I know it's going to cost me some money. And so I'm going to go ahead and vote that way. Or I could say, nope, I don't want to pay for that. Or I don't trust the people that are running it. You know, it could be
Yeah.
that. And therefore, why would I give them money that I don't think they'll probably use the right way anyway? So we have all these different things that can go through our heads, but very seldom do we think or we even encouraged to think about what really that well, let me back that. That's not fair because that's being sold, I guess, in a sense, as a this is what's best for our community. So there are people who are encouraging us to do that, and it might be best, and it might not be best. Each situation is going to be different. So, but I think as a Christian, what I have to, I feel like I have to think, not just in election, but in other situations, what is best for others. And and so, and it may not play out in an election as much as it would be in other situations. That may not be a fair place to use
I mean, I think
that
if I could
thought, but
sort of sum it in a way that I do think is very relevant to elections and to our call as Christians, elements of our democracy, at least as currently constituted, both culturally and just the way the system works, is we are encouraged culturally to be highly individualistic. Highly
yes,
individualistic.
we
You
are.
need to do what's
Mhm.
absolutely best for you, what makes you the most money. And this goes back
Right.
to our idol of self. We're encouraged to be highly individualistic right now culturally. And what I hear you calling us to is really a sense of community. And that's what we see in scripture. That's what we see that's what we see God try to do with his people in the Old Testament, is give them a sense of community. That's what we see Jesus do with the church. And if what I hear what you're saying is, not only as Christians should we have a sense of community with the church, but to maybe just be good moral citizens as Christians in our faith, it would be good to consider the needs of the entire community, and not just what
Yeah.
raises my social economic status the best.
Right. Well, the way Jeremiah put it when he was talking about Babylon was to pray for the community where you live. That's not the exact words. So, but
Hmm.
Yeah.
that's where they were going to live, right? They were living someplace they didn't want to live. Well,
Right.
that's your home for right now. You do
Yeah.
your best. You still get married, kids in marriage, and do what's good for the community.
Yeah.
And so we find ourselves in a similar situation. And so then how do we live our lives in a way that blesses the community as well?
Right.
But our purpose is different in that we are trying to glorify God and help people to see
Yes.
Him more clearly. So we're getting off on the weeds now. That
Well, a little
you-
bit, and
so
I want
yeah,
to circle back to kneeling to kneeling,
okay,
especially when it comes to prayer
yeah,
and worship at some point. But since we are talking about this, a question I wrote down for what comes up later, Mitch, you mentioned in Daniel 6 that 3 times a day Daniel got on his knees and he prayed, giving thanks to God just as he has done before, or the NLT, just as usual. He did not begin praying as a reaction to what was happening, nor did he stop praying as a reaction to what was happening. He maintained his habits, and this idea that in crisis he stuck with, he built upon his private routines. Something I wanted to highlight from that is it keeps right in with the really fairly political tone of our discussion. Look at Daniel 6 and look at Romans 13. When, as Christians, should we protest? When should we submit? How do we know how to make these kind of distinctions? We could tie this to all sorts of events, singular events that have happened in our lifetimes. But I don't know. You guys can speak for yourselves, or you can speak just from the experience in ministry and kind of church leadership. But we have 2 passages, 2 responses. The Daniel response, in multiple times, even outside of Daniel 6, and multiple times, is to sometimes it's a kneel, just as you've done before, and do what you've always been doing. But in Shadrach and Benny, sometimes the Daniel response is to stand up and defy, whereas Romans 13 calls us to submit.
Yeah.
So when is what response appropriate? Because I think a lot of people find themselves wrestling with that over the years.
And I mean, I wish that there was a simple cookie cutter answer. I think context is important. Like
Yeah.
you said, you read the
Yeah.
book of Daniel, and it is context specific. In the form of this, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when they are presented with what looks like very strong protest of, we are not going to do this, and then whenever they are able to go before King Nebuchadnezzar, it's protest language is
Definitely.
honestly a good way
Yeah.
to say it. It's protest language, but they didn't seek it out. They just, before this, stayed very, like, doing the thing that they always did, which was not bow down to anything else except God. They didn't bend the
True.
knee to anything
True.
else. And so they were brought in. And so they used protest language in that moment. Now, Daniel, same idea. He didn't do this publicly. He just kept doing this. I mean, public. He didn't do it for recognition. He didn't continue praying for recognition. He just prayed as was usual, as was his habit, as what he did. But he still was brought in. But in this moment, he does not defend himself. He does not protest. He doesn't have any kind of language that we see where he's trying to get out of it. And neither Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego don't try to get out
Right.
of it, but they
Very
explain
notable.
it. Daniel doesn't even explain it in this situation. So here, just in the book of Daniel, we have 2 examples that give very different pictures in the moment, but yet hold the same results. Both of them are honored
Yeah.
for their faithfulness. So I think it's meant to be a tension is where
Right.
I'm getting at,
Mhm.
is that I think we have to wrestle with it. It's not always the right thing to flood the streets and protest, but it's also not always the right thing to sit on your hands and
Do
do
nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, but there are times whenever being quiet is the faithful approach. And then there's sometimes that, I'm not going to say making a ruckus, but like protest language
Yeah. There are things
is
worth
the right
standing up
approach.
for, right?
Yeah, standing up. There are things worth, and that's the interesting thing to me about Daniel 3 and Daniel 6 is that they are so similar in stories.
Mm-hmm.
Bow before this, bow before this, bow to this idol of this king, or bow only to this king.
Do
The
not.
language is almost like the situations are almost inseparable.
Yeah.
But how they go, and then like, here's the consequence, it's death. Here's the consequence, it's death. They know what they're up against. The only difference is we have a picture of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego being able to have a conversation with Nebuchadnezzar. In Daniel 6, we don't have that. So we are stuck in that middle ground in between. Here's the problem. We know the consequence. What do we do with the middle ground? And I think that's one of the big parts of it is I think we got to be okay with the consequence. If we're going to do anything, we need to wrestle with is the consequence. So if I stand up for something, if what I'm doing is standing up toward against something that I believe is wrong, is illegal or anything like that, but what I'm doing then makes it to where I'm in questionable circumstances. I'm thinking civil rights movement of different, bus situations or anything to that effect where they would stand in unlawful, according to Jim Crow laws, if nothing else, unlawful situations, but they were willing to accept the consequences.
Right.
That right there is the thing that I think a lot of times we're missing is we want to stand up for something and avoid consequences. And you just can't.
Yeah. And if you notice, I mean, if you pay attention to what's going on in Daniel, they aren't trying to topple the government.
Yes. That's
Daniel just continues praying. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego just say, I worship somebody else. I can't bow to you.
Yeah.
And so the ones who cause the ruckus are the officials in
That's a good point. In both.
Yeah, in Babylon.
The troublemakers,
Or the king. And so those are the ones who are creating the havoc and the chaos and all that other stuff. The ones who are following God are really calm. They're just continuing to be faithful. That's all they're doing. And so we sometimes think that we need to create the ruckus, as you were saying.
Yes. Yeah.
When maybe God's not calling us to do that. He's calling us to be faithful, even in the face
amidst the ruckus.
Amidst the ruckus. Yeah. So, so what does that look like? I know that every situation is going to be different, but I do like your comparison between some of the civil rights protests and how they function.
Yeah, not all of them, but yeah.
Not all of them, but a lot where they were indicating, they were in solidarity. They knew they were going to be arrested. They knew they were going to be beaten, but they were helping to make a statement without functioning violently themselves.
That's right. And
it wasn't just about themselves. It wasn't just about that one individual or that small group of people. It was about, they were doing this for a number of other people who may not be able to speak for themselves. So,
and you're going back to, in a weird sense, we're going right back to the individualistic culture versus the communal mentality. And Mitch, I like that you highlighted something there because I kind of presented a false dichotomy of the Daniel 6 versus the Romans 13 response. But I like that you highlighted that they did not change, that they had been the same with this teaching. The environment changed around them. And if I would compare that to Romans 13, the emergence of the Christian movement is the complete opposite. The culture had always been polytheistic. The culture had always been paganistic for, I don't know, at least a couple of 100 years before Jesus, depending on who you ask. And the Christians were called to be the agents of change. They were the ones who had inwardly changed. They were the ones who, well, now we recognize we're swimming upstream. And in a weird way, I think Daniel 6 is still in alignment with Romans 13. I think Paul would say Daniel's doing exactly what I'm asking you to do, and that is when it comes to when you go all the way to the beginning of Daniel, looking at context, as you said, when the issues around their diet, they find a way to make that work. They find a way to be Israelites in a Babylonian culture. They find a way to be obedient to God, even though no one else around them is. And that's what, when you read Romans, that's what you really hear Paul calling the new Christian movement to do is he's not saying you need to be the ones to go out and turn the world upside down, even though that's how they get categorized later. From politically, socially, maybe you should morally, spiritually, but from politically, socially, he's saying, listen, go out, be good Roman citizens, pay your taxes to whoever you pay taxes to, obey your masters, right? That's his whole point. Wives, if you're Christians and your husband's not, obey your husbands. Be faithful wives. Children, if you're Christians and your parents are not, be faithful children. Be obedient to your parents. Servants, if you're serving unchristian masters, obey your masters. Do not go out and intentionally be these agents of chaos to just sow discord everywhere, but you go out and be the peacemakers, right? You go out and be the ones who, amidst all this chaos, have peace, who have a higher purpose, and that's what's really going to make change. And lo and behold, Paul is proven correct. The more Christians get persecuted, the more they are thrown into the lions in the Colosseum, the more they are burned at the stake, the more people begin taking notice and going, okay, this is crazy. Who are these people? What do they believe that is leading them to do these insane things in the face of even higher and higher stakes and higher consequences?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's the consequences. When you walk forward into the consequence, knowing fully well what's going to happen. Like, I think that's what's so impressive with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and then Daniel in Daniel 6 is that you talk about holiness in motion, like the walk to the den.
Right.
He's not like, I don't get the picture that he's resisting, that he's yelling, he's screaming. It's almost like he's leading them. Like, okay.
He's walking confidently.
Yeah, it's a confidence of, and I think he's still thinking what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego thought is, I don't know if the Lord's going to save me, but if he doesn't, I'm going to be with him one way or another.
Yeah.
Whether in death or in life, I will be with him. And that preaches to a world. Like, I can preach my best sermons till I'm blue in the face, and it won't have the same impact as someone walking faithfully,
absolutely,
in holiness to the consequences that whatever they may be. That's a sermon that preaches every time.
Yeah, I think this seems like such a detail in it, but I think the willingness to face the consequences no matter the cost is exactly kind of what we're getting at in the Christians with Daniel, Shadrach, and Benny in the Old Testament. And I'm going to kind of contrast that with what sometimes the prevailing American cultural Christianity looks like, where it's all the show, all the glory, and none of the sacrifice. Like that is our temptation in our day and age. Is if Daniel's edict came down today, and it was not a recommendation, it was not a suggestion. If overnight something happened governmentally, and we are thrown into houses of worship are no longer allowed to meet. Church doors need to be closed. I think the Daniel response would be, it wouldn't be with large picket fence sign. It wouldn't be me live streaming, hey guys, look, I'm going to worship even though the government told me not to. It would be the calm presence of someone walking in, and then when the police all show up, going into handcuffs and calmly walking to the jail or walking into the electric chair, walking into the executioner's room, whatever that is, and saying, look, and this actually is a perfect segue to not a clip, but a verse that you referenced that is one of my favorite verses in the Old Testament. It might be one of my favorite in the Bible. And it's Daniel 3:17 and 18, where if you throw us into the furnace, we know that the God we serve is fully able. He is not too weak. You are not too strong. He is fully able to deliver us. But even if he does not, we want you to know that we will not serve your gods. In that power of saying, you know what? If worshiping God is illegal, I'm still going to worship God. And if you want to arrest me, arrest me. If you're going to put me to death, put me to death. Because you know what? I know that God could intervene and save me, but if he doesn't, even my death will not stop me, because I know that this is serving a greater good. And it's incredible trust. It's incredible faith to just throw yourself at the feet of the courts, if you will, of saying, it reminds me of Peter's, might be Peter and John or Peter and James in Acts, where they say, the Pharisees are like, guys, you've been arrested like 4 times. You got to shut up about this Jesus guy. You cannot keep doing this. And they say, listen, we know what we have seen and heard.
Yeah.
You decide. You decide what's best for you. But as for us, we cannot help but speak about what we have seen and heard.
And that's, I mean, that's why, going back to the original thing, kneeling is never neutral then.
Right.
Like that, what we kneel to is, it's going to show our allegiance. It's going to show who we serve. And so we need to be very discriminate. We need to be very, we need to choose wisely, borrowing the Joshua language, who we're going to serve this day.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's definitely the point.
Yeah. Well, we've actually, I would say we've skimmed over about half the things we want to talk about, but we've pretty excellently weaved this together. If I can break my arm, pat myself on the back, ourselves in the back a little bit. But one thing that we missed earlier that I do want to kind of go back to, you said this toward the beginning, before getting into kneeling isn't neutral, you talked about how kneeling communicates something, that our posture says something. And so I kind of want to throw this to you guys. We have talked a lot about this off the air, so to speak, about our posture that we tend to have. This is not just Western Heights, this is kind of Christians in general, but I will contextualize, localize this a little bit. The church, in my experience here, I'll say the church in general, we kind of do a lot of sitting. we are big fans of sitting in worship versus other postures. And you shared a little bit that it crossed your mind even at some point on Sunday, like, do I kneel? Should I kneel while doing this?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll take that. Sitting is one of the least referenced
Right.
postures of, especially with worship. When it comes to worship, I'm not sure that there's a reference of how we worship God is sitting, but there are references of sitting in different portions or different kind of ideas. But kneeling is often mentioned. I'm going to say this wrong.
I know.
Laying down. What is the word? I'm going to prostrate.
Prostrate.
No?
Yes.
Which one is it?
Yeah,
it's prostrate. Oh, yes.
Prostrate. Yes.
Okay.
Prostrate.
Yeah,
With an
thank
R.
you. I'm getting too old like
Procrastinate.
this. Yeah, procrastinate on that word. But like laying down is a word that's used often. Standing, lifting hands, all of these postures communicate. And that is one of the things, is that when we're sitting, the communication, the natural communication is not positive, not always positive. Because it's more of a relaxed setup. So yeah, I do think our posture toward God is very important. So kneeling as the impetus of this sermon is a posture. And during the invitation song, there was this moment that I was mentioning earlier. There's this moment coming to the second verse, I think, or maybe it's just in the chorus, that I'm up in front for the invitation song in front of the whole congregation still singing. And I'm like, the song is about kneeling. Kneel at the cross was the song.
Right.
And I'm like, should I kneel?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is probably yes, I should have. Here's what held me back. That's not normal.
That's how we do
here.
Yeah.
And I'm actually ashamed of that, because it's one of those things that it's like, that's the negative peer pressure idea, rather than the positive of God compelling for a physical motion. I should do that. That's one of my responses for if someone says, hey, I feel like raising my hands during a certain song. Is that okay?
That's like exactly what I was going to say, is I feel that sometimes too, like, man, I want, and in fact, okay. I guess this was a note from Winterfest that didn't make the original cut. I did a lot of hand raising during worship at Winterfest. I think part of that was knowing I don't know any of these people around me. But I think another part of it was none of these people know me, that I am a paid and supported staff member at this place. And so there is something that I get in my own head a little bit about, and I've thought this other places as well. But if there's a song that's like powerful or emotional or convicting enough, like I want to kind of do a little hand raising. You can't see my hands on screen. I'll scoot way back. I wanted to do a little hand raising, but I get so aware of like, oh, but nobody does that. And like, what would it say if I started, and I get really in my own head about it, like you said. And I think in other cultures, it's called tall poppy syndrome. In some of the English Australian cultures that are a little more communal, and that's that the tall ones get cut down. So you don't want to stand out. You don't want to be different from everybody else. You don't want to be unusual. And so in a way, by not kneeling in worship, we kneel instead to culture a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, to use that one is by not kneeling in what I thought, man, maybe I should, and felt that, I ended up kneeling toward the status quo.
Yeah.
And man, that'll rock you a little bit whenever you realize in a worship service, was I really worshiping God in that moment, or did I let something else be my focus and what I kneeled toward? So yeah, I think that's where we always have to be careful is, why are we doing what we're doing? What is the reason behind it?
Well, and conversely, I guess if Neil was leading Neil at the cross, or I'm sorry, Ray was leading it, but I was laughing to myself because I was thinking of Neil the whole time in a weird way.
Neil was leading Neil at the cross.
Ray was leading Neil at the cross. If someone is leading a song and I just run down there the middle aisle and I throw my feet, okay, yeah, that person is making this a little bit about themselves, right? Like if I make a scene, but what I want to, I guess, kind of challenge those people that we think we hear in our heads of like, oh, if I do this, someone's going to think differently of it. What I would kind of challenge the crowd in this sense is, yeah, if someone sprints in and runs down the middle aisle and they make a scene, yes, they are kind of making it about themselves. But if someone off to the wings or even in a couple pews behind you kneels during a song, if they sit down and they just throw their head on the pew in front of them, if they lift up an arm or two arms, why is that taking away from worship to you? And I say that because I know when we start talking about worship is a very loaded discussion. It's somewhat of a sacred cow in our tradition, in our branch stream of Christianity, if you will. Tradition's another loaded word that I probably shouldn't have used there, but it's in our stream, in our culture, in our church culture, like literally our congregational church culture. Why is that such a big deal? Because it is scriptural. It's 100. There's really no debate on whether either of those things are scriptural or not. They are. Kneeling is scriptural. Laying prostrate would be scriptural in certain contexts. Lifting holy hands in the assembly would be scriptural.
Yep.
So
Straight from
my
scripture.
question to my challenge, I guess, to the crowd in that sense would be, why does that bother you? Why would that bother you? Why would that take away from your experience of worshiping God, that somebody else is having a response that is 100,000,000% scriptural and biblical, but is just different? Why would that detract from it so much that you would be bothered if somebody did it? That would be kind of my challenge.
Let me ask a question. Are we making some assumptions about what people think?
Probably.
So, yes, have people thought that before? Yes. Is it possible that even people think like that even in our worship assemblies? Yes. But
that sounds like a hypothetical straw man, doesn't it?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think, well, that's possible. There may be some people like that. I think for most people, they may think that somebody will be thinking about them that way.
Yeah.
Or they may think, I don't know how to do this without it looking weird because I've never done this before.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, or they may like, that's just not me. I just don't, that's not my personality. I don't do that. It could be a variety of things. But we do have to be careful about how our own judgment of other people.
True.
Yeah.
True.
If we are
There's a
judging
point of
somebody else's
Terrance.
motive for why they're raising their hands or standing, we've had people before who've stood up in the middle of a song.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's interesting is that sometimes everybody ends up standing up as a result of that.
Yeah.
And what I notice, what it feels like to me is that they don't want them to stand by themselves. And so a few people stand, and then a few more people stand, and then the rest of them are like, well, I guess I need to stand too. So, because nobody wants to be left out.
We don't
So
like mixed responses, whatever they
we
are.
don't like mixed responses. Yeah, we struggle with that, but it's
That's
okay to have a mixed response. It's okay if somebody
Yeah.
stands or if somebody raises their hands or if somebody kneels. Now, if somebody's, like you were saying, gets out in the aisle and starts rolling around or makes a big sing, that's a whole different animal there.
Then we'd be Pentecostal, but
Well, so, but
sorry.
but the thing is, if somebody is legitimately worshiping
Yeah.
and are emotionally connected to the song and that causes them to kneel or raise their hands, and who are we to say they shouldn't do that? And then who are we to say to yourself, I shouldn't do that because somebody might not like it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
who's really who
Yeah.
do you need to like it?
Right.
You
Right.
need God
And
to like it, right?
that's part of the context is,
Yeah.
I mean, we would add into this the whole weaker brother, stronger brother argument of, okay, I'm not going to intentionally be offensive to someone if I know it will offend. So there are certain things like I could point to David dancing before the Lord when the Ark of the Covenant is returned. That is clearly worship, and
Yeah.
his wife does not like it. And he responds as like, what am I supposed to do? Like,
Right.
this is before the Lord. This is my heart and my body before the Lord. What else am I supposed to do? Well, if someone were to dance in our worship service, that would be offensive to some. And so do we do that? But then like, so what is the right answer in there? Well, you got to know your brothers and sisters enough to know hearts behind it.
Right.
And so before we jump to conclusions or judgment of someone because they did or didn't do it, and so a lot of that's in our own head. Well, someone's going to judge me. Someone's not going to like this. But I don't have any like sister so-and-so.
Yes. Yeah.
But if I have a relationship and I know sister so-and-so doesn't like this, then we can continue talking and saying, okay, look, I know you don't, but can you see it from my side? And can we have a conversation? And now worship isn't just simply what I'm feeling in this moment, but now worship is what I'm feeling in this moment connected to who I'm feeling it
community.
with.
Yeah.
The community
Yeah.
that is around me. And sometimes my physical action, whether it be posture of raising hands or getting on my knees or laying down flat, that may be the case, or it may simply be that I'm smiling at my brother and sister in worship. And that's a physical posture that reflects something of worship that encourages, hopefully, them to worship along with me.
Yeah.
And I think we also need to take into consideration being offended. We get mixed up with being offended and causing somebody to stumble.
Ooh,
So
point.
causing
True.
someone to stumble is one thing.
Yeah.
And scripture is very clear on that. If you cause someone to stumble, then you need to back up and reconsider what you're doing.
Right.
But if you hack somebody off because they don't like it, Jesus did that a lot with the Pharisees.
Yes,
So
he did.
now if you were doing it so that you can make somebody mad, that's also a bad attitude and a wrong reason to do that.
Yeah, that's a good
But
point.
if you get offended because you don't like something, then maybe you need to reconsider, why are you offended?
Right.
And is that offense that you're taking, is that appropriate in God's eyes?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Good
So
point.
we need to look at it from both places. You know, if you're trying to offend people, well, then consider why, because maybe you're not doing the right thing. But if you're getting offended, maybe you need to consider why and whether that's really correct with God. So
Well said. And I'll leave us with this in defense of David. Whomst amongst us has not had an overjoyous response that has caused their wife to say, "You are embarrassing yourself. You are embarrassing yourself, and you need to stop. I don't care how many points they
Stop
just
it.
scored. I don't
That's
care
it.
how important this game was.
Yes.
We are in public, and you need to calm down."
Yeah.
That
Okay.
was good. I
Touche.
appreciated that insight there.
So, Mitch, why don't you tell us what is coming up next Sunday from the service?
All right. Well, I'm continuing in the Holiness in Motion series. Got a couple more in that. This one I'm also excited about. This one's running in holiness. So we're going to be looking
All right.
at Joseph.
How are you going to do
running-
that on stage?
Oh, just wait. Yeah. I am wearing tennis shoes this Sunday. All right.
Are you gonna do the prodigal father and hike up your robe and run?
So
goodness.
those are my two stories.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Joseph running away
Running away.
in holiness, and the prodigal father running to. in
Nice.
holiness.
Okay. I didn't mean to steal your thunder a little bit, but
No,
that's
no
good.
stealing of thunder. It's nice to know that
I'm
these will
looking forward
connect.
looking forward to seeing you in the road.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll
Boy.
wear the robe and all.
We'll save our conversation for posture and dress and worship for another week.
Okay.
Let's segue into upcoming events because there is a lot, or at least the absence of a lot with spring break. You guys have any fun spring break plans?
I've got my schooling intensive. So I got my
Yes.
week of class where I go on campus and am in class from 8 to 5. So
The family get to
I've
enjoy
got
the
grandkids.
camping side. Oh.
yeah, so we'd bring it since it's spring break. The whole family gets to join, and we're going to Harding. So we get to hang out with my eldest, and that'll be
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That'd be fun.
About that side of it too.
Yeah.
Rusty, you said y'all are what?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Grandkids. Sorry. We've got grandkids coming.
Yeah.
So
So you are the spring break destination. They're coming to you.
yes. I am the destination. We are the destination. That's right.
That's fun. That's neat. We have I would say little to no plans. The youth, we floated a kind of last minute high school trip. It was on the budget for last year. We made room in the budget for it, tried to look and see if we could make it happen. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I don't know how many things I'm going to plan within a couple weeks of LTC, to be honest, for as long as we're doing that. I will throw out to everybody, let everybody know, not tomorrow, not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, mainly because of spring break, but mainly because of the consequences of spring break, which means lots of people are out, lots of teachers and leaders of classes and such. Next Wednesday the 18th. Is that right?
Yeah, it should be right.
Yeah. I look at my calendar. Wednesday the 18th, we will have a singing night. And the plan, at least at the moment, is for the high school, middle school to join with the adults in kind of an old school singing night. I would like to bring some of the youth, quote unquote Devo songs to the table and maybe get those some little more practice in. But regardless, we'll have a singing night next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, next Wednesday. Unless you're listening after this Wednesday on, say, Thursday, then it would be this Wednesday.
What's the date again?
The 18th.
The 18th. No class.
That's the way to talk about that.
Yeah, remember the 18th of March.
Yes, this year, 2026.
Yes.
In case you're listening after
You
the
listen
18th.
to this a couple years later. Yeah.
In case
don't get
anyone's coming
confused.
back in time listening to us. So, well, if that's everything, everyone out there, we thank you for listening a little longer than usual, but for coming back and joining us for an episode of the podcast. And we hope to see you on Sunday.
All right.